Okay, so we concluded this morning's conversation with Muruganar arriving and meeting Bhagavan, and Bhagavan instructing or hinting at Muruganar to compose like Manikavachar. That's when we sort of parted for lunch. So Muruganar took that to heart and he started composing poems that are very similar to Manikavachakar's Tiruvachakam. So he takes every section. So Tiruvachakam is organized in multiple sections. For every section in Tiruvachakam, he uses the exact same title, the exact same meter of the poetry, and the poems are composed towards Bhagavan, imagining or praying to Bhagavan as God or Lord Shiva. Whereas Manikavachakar prayed to Lord Shiva himself, here Muruganar prays to Bhagavan and Bhagavan's Lord Shiva. So he spent nearly about a year or so writing that, and there was a period where he was moving between Chennai and Tiruvannamalai when his mother was still alive. When his mother attained the lotus feet of Lord, he permanently moved to Tiruvannamalai and he stayed at the feet of Bhagavan. Since then, he had been with Bhagavan and at Arunachala continuously. So there is a section in that poetry that talks about Shiva going to Taruka forest and sort of educating a set of saints and sages who believe action will get them liberation. And he wrote the exquisite poetry, and that section in the original Tiruvachakam is called Undiyar. Undiyar is a style of writing poetry. And there is a specific section where Shiva gives advice to the sages. And when that section came in, Muruganar approached Bhagavan, because Bhagavan's Lord, Shiva, and asked Bhagavan to compose those verses. And since he composed to the exact number and the meter, he had only 30 verses allocated for that section. So in popular literature, it's believed those 30 verses are composed by Bhagavan. But whereas if you look at Day by Day, dated 7/12/1945, Bhagavan actually says he was asked to compose only 27 of those 30 verses. So it's not clear which 3 verses were composed by Muruganar and which 27 were composed by Bhagavan. If there is a guess, it's very believable the very last verse of the 30 verses is composed by Muruganar, because in that the word Ramana comes as a person who has authored the songs. It's very highly unlikely Bhagavan himself uses that name, so it's very sort of believable to sort of imagine that Muruganar composed the last verse. And Swami actually indicated the very first 2 verses of Upadesa Saram actually does not contain Upadesa. It just sets the scene for the problem. So it's also equally believable the first 2 verses were composed by Muruganar, and verses 3 through 29 could have been composed by Bhagavan because they have only the spiritual instructions that are meant for devotees. However, when these 30 verses were translated to Upadesa Saram in Sanskrit, Bhagavan composed all those 30 verses. So that's in the Day by Day. However, if you read the letters, where there's a section about Upadesa Undiyar, it's indicated that Bhagavan composed 30 verses. Right? So we have only those 2 sources. There's no clear sort of indication on where the delineation is. But however, as Bhagavan will indicate to Muruganar later, everything is composed by Bhagavan. So Upadesa Undiyar was composed in 1927. You would see a small ink in black saying it's 1927. Some of you asked, so which part of the presentation was composed by Dennis? When I made a claim earlier, Dennis composed this presentation 30 years ago. You'll come to that story in a minute. This Upadesa Noonmalai is a very old version. In this version, the footnote here in Tamil says the 30th poem is composed by Muruganar. So in this version, only 30th verse is attributed to Muruganar. Rest of them are by sort of implication attributed to Bhagavan. So as I said, there are varying sort of accounts of who composed what. It's somewhat irrelevant. So coming back to the dates and Dennis. So Dennis had gotten a book from Natason, and Natason had received the exact dates of many of the compositions done by Bhagavan at the request of Muruganar. So this is the front page of that book, where Dennis clearly wrote this in August 11th of 1993, stating that Natason had given him this book with specific dates. And it's so interesting, in Day by Day on 8/12/1945, Bhagavan actually makes a reference for such a book, which Muruganar maintained, that Muruganar actually kept the exact dates of those compositions. And as you would see in a minute, the next big composition that Muruganar urged Bhagavan to do is Ulladu Naarpadu. They exist, they 40 verses on existence, or 40 verses on reality. This is such an awe-inspiring picture. And there are few pictures that are taken within few minutes. And in every one of these pictures, you would see Bhagavan, and you would see Muruganar, unkept hair, but just looking at Bhagavan. There are a lot of people who would come and go in these frames, but Muruganar's sight would be at Bhagavan. That talks about his devotion, that talks about his bhakti. And every time I look at this picture, I just get goosebumps. Right? This devotee, and there are many stories about Muruganar where Bhagavan would ask him to do some work. Bhagavan would be sitting in front of him. Muruganar would be lost in just looking at Bhagavan. Bhagavan actually had to sometimes spill water over his face to wake him up to continue to do his duty. What an exquisite privilege the devotee had. And he just sets an example for us to follow in terms of what devotion is and how it should be followed. And it's also equally true, both Kavya Gandha Ganapati as well as Muruganar, when they sit in front of Bhagavan, they wouldn't close the eyes, they just would look at Bhagavan, because that's Paramatma. Why do you need to close your eyes? And they would advise other devotees to do the same, which is exactly this picture. So this is the picture of Muruganar writing, and that's K. Natason. So, slightly shifting gears, there is a poet by name Gopala Krishna Bharathi. Does that name ring a bell to you? Okay.
We have many songs.
So Gopala Krishna Bharathi, Nandanar Chatram, exactly. So Gopala Krishna Bharathi lived between 1810 to 1896. He sort of left his body in the exact same year that Bhagavan came to Tiruvannamalai. And there's no reason to believe both of them had met. But however, there are numerous connections between those two. And Gopala Krishna Bharathi is one of the sort of the founding fathers of what today we call as the music drama, which sort of set a trend. Up until that time, people would sing about Ramakatha, Ramayana, or Mahabharata, and that's it. There wouldn't be any elaborate sort of song and dance about any other feature. So Gopala Krishna Bharathi is a contemporary of Tyagaraja, Saint Tyagaraja, who's a great Carnatic composer who lived in Thiruvayuru. And when Gopala Krishna Bharathi visited Tyagaraja, Tyagaraja prompted him to compose songs. So Gopala Krishna Bharathi had taken the subject of Nandanar. So Nandanar is one of the 63 saints of Shaiva tradition. And the story of Nandanar is very simple. He's a very poor, low-caste Shiva devotee, and he would work for a landlord who wouldn't encourage him to leave his work. But he's constantly motivated by going to Shiva temple locally, as well as going to Chidambaram. His life's ambition is to go to Chidambaram and see Lord Nataraja. That's his life's ambition. And every day he will tell himself I'll go there tomorrow. Much like what I did when I did my homework. And so therefore he's nicknamed as Tirunalai Povar, which means Mr. will go tomorrow. That's literally what it translates to. Tirunalai Povar. And the history behind that Nandanar Charitram is very terse. Periya Puranam was written by Sekiyar. So if you read Periya Puranam, Sekiyar's Tirunalai Povar Puranam is what it's called, there would be roughly about 29 to 30 verses. There would be a sketch of his life in poetic form. So what Gopala Krishna Bharathiar did was to take those verses and create an elaborate music drama in Carnatic music. And Gopala Krishna Bharati had a unique privilege because he's not only a composer, but he also had the privilege of watching his compositions enacted in front of him. And one of his close friends, devotees, musician and performer is none other than Hema's great granddad. That's Chidambaram Sri Rangacharya. Hema, do you want to talk about him?
Sure. Hello, it works. So this is Chidambaram Sri Rangacharya, my grandfather's father. As his name denotes, he was born in Chidambaram, and his father, Embar Varadacharya, was actually a close friend of Gopala Krishna Bharathiar. So when Gopala Krishna Bharathiar, this is a story that's been shared in the family, and there is some documentation in some books about this.
Maybe you can get up and come.
Sure.
Sure. Thank you.
Sure. I'm just being lazy.
Yeah, just lazy. Get up.
So there are some documentations about the fact that Embar Varadacharya Swami and Gopala Krishna Bharati were contemporaries. And when he wrote Nandanar Charitram, he would give it to Varadacharya and have him do proofreading and make corrections and get his opinion. At that time, he was a kid. He was probably 10 to 15 years old at the time. And Hari and I were chatting about this. There is a very high possibility that he learned directly from Gopala Krishna Bharati, right? So it's quite possible. So he's basically a Harikatha artist. So all three generations, my grandfather, great granddad, and his father, were all Harikatha artists. And his Nandanar Charitram. So Gopala Krishna Bharati gave the poetry form of Nandanar Charitram, and he took it further. He popularized it in the form of Harikatha. So after him, his Harikatha remained unparalleled until 1935, when his son started performing the same, and his father told him at the age of 20 or something, when my grandfather was performing, he told him, okay, he seems to be okay, he'll do fine. Right? So that was the blessing. So just another little anecdote about him. Of course, my mother hasn't met him. He died a long time back. So apparently he was also a very close acquaintance of Seshadri Swamigal. And he would often visit Seshadri Swamigal and Bhagavan during the Virupakshi days, or even prior. We don't have any records of that. So one of the things that Hari and I have been doing is looking for any Vaishnavites and old pictures, Bhagavan pictures, so we're searching for that. So he popularized that, and that was actually, I'm going to turn it over to Hari, because Nandanar Charitram was one of Bhagavan's very favorite works, and he would often talk about it and refer that to other devotees.
Thank you. I thought it's a beautiful story to share. So what's the connection between this and Bhagavan? One of the other music disciples of Gopala Krishna Bharathiar is Upadesa Saram Iyer. So we spoke about Upadesa Saram Iyer this morning. If you remember, he's the person who went and collected Tamil works from a lot of palm leaves. And Upadesa Saram Iyer had a very close connection with Muruganar. And one of one of the very popular songs that came in the Nandanar Charitram is Iye Metta Kadinam.
Kadinam Iyer.
Ati-
Which-
Ati
which-
Sulabham, okay.
No,
Yeah.
Metta Kadinam.
And that inspired you to write Iye Ati Sulabham.
So the meaning of Iye Metta
Metta
Kadinam
Kadinam
is,
is too-
oh my God, it's so
too
difficult.
difficult.
That's
Bhagavan responds, "Yeah, Ati Sulabham."
exactly. So it says it is so difficult. That's sort of what Nandanar sort of sings in sort of, you know, having his self-realization, and it's very poignant song. So that's when Atmavidya song was composed, because Muruganar had just composed the first line of the song. He had composed Aye Ati Sulabham, right? Oh, it is so easy. But then he gave rest of the work to Bhagavan to finish the stanzas around this song. So Bhagavan, so the original song had these Aye Metta Kadinam, and then there are 4 charanams or 4 sections, 4 stanzas of poetry. And that ends with Ponnambalam, i.e. that he is going to Chidambaram, which is called Ponnambalam. So in the spirit of, you know, giving more names to the same exact Lord and place. Ponnambalam is another name for Chidambaram or Tillai. So Bhagavan composes 4 stanzas, then realizes the word Arunachala did not find its place. So Bhagavan composes the 5th stanza with Arunachala in it. And Bhagavan himself says that in this talk on 26-46. The other beautiful thing is, if nothing else, Bhagavan wrote a wonderful calligraphy of this song right here. It is so beautiful, like it's better than the printed version, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And you would contrast between Bhagavan's handwriting and the typeset printing. Look at the difference. That's the print. And by the way, that was composed on 25th April 1927. That's the date it was composed. We're making progress today. All right. So I like this from the Maharshi newsletter by B.S. Ramanan in 1997. And this anecdote exists in multiple different places, Balaram Reddyar as well as G.V. Subramanian. So both of them ask one day to Bhagavan, Bhagavan, you say it's so easy, but yet we find it so difficult. And Bhagavan's answer is, trust it, it is easy. And that's it. And he went into silence. So I like this picture because that's how Bhagavan writes. He sits in his easy chair and holds in his hand, and what comes out is this beautiful calligraphy. And it's very difficult. If you want to try it, you just try holding this in hands and writing it. When I attempted, it was, you know, my handwriting wasn't good enough to start with. And you wouldn't actually sort of put it in the right place. But what you notice in Bhagavan's handwriting is it's like a straight line. Everything is a straight line. Everything is vertical. The alignment between the horizontal and vertical is so perfect. You know, only a perfect being can do it. So, Ramana Puranam. So, Muruganar continues to compose Sannadhi Murai. He composes pretty much every section of Tiruvachakam in his Sannadhi Murai, except the very first section of Tiruvachakam, that is under the title of Shiva Puranam. Although the word might imply that he's actually talking about Shiva's Puranam, it's actually a meaningfully short poem. It's 95 lines. It's written in the style of Venba, now that we all know what Venba is. And if you sort of pick top 3 devotional songs in Tamil, invariably Shiva Puranam will be one of the top. And Bhagavan refers that in numerous places, in letters, day by day, and talks. So if you come across the Shiva Puranam word, it refers to the first section of Tiruvachakam. So somebody reminds Muruganar that he might want to consider writing Shiva Puranam also as part of Sannadhi Murai, because that completes the whole Tiruvachakam equivalent. So one day he sits in front of Bhagavan and starts composing. although the original verse had only 95 lines, he keeps on composing and it goes well beyond 200 to 220 lines. And at which point Muruganar gets into two conflicts. Conflict number one is...
No, I was going to say that even if it's only 4 or 5 lines, you should play that record of Shiva Puranam that you have on your phone. It's really, and maybe you should emphasize the fact that it's considered one of the most beautiful pieces of poetry in all of Tamil history.
It is absolutely one of the best poems. I'll play it in a second.
Some Sri Lankan actually sang.
It's sung by a Sri Lankan person. I'll play it in 1 second. So, Muruganar gets into two conflicts. First, he gets into writer's block. He comes across, finishes roughly about 200 to 240 lines, and it just abruptly stops. Second, he's conflicted as to what to call that. Because pretty much everything else has the exact same name as the original Tiruvachakam. But whereas this section is titled as Shiva Puranam in the original section, whereas he is writing about Bhagavan. So, when you get conflict, all you do is to sort of keep it and walk out, which is what he did. He left it in Bhagavan's feet, walked out. By the time he came back, Bhagavan not only finished the entire verse, which is an additional of about 200 to 300 other lines, but also in every page of that note, he wrote it as Ramana Puranam, Ramana Puranam, Ramana Puranam. There were like several pages. Every page he wrote it.
Wow.
So that resolved both his conflicts. So the other beautiful story about it, so this is written here so beautifully here. So the very first published draft of this book, Sandhani Murai, Muruganar puts an asterisk and a footnote saying, up until this line was composed by Muruganar, and rest of the lines are composed by Bhagavan. So as usual, Bhagavan proofreads, and he literally says this, "Oh, idu mattum dhaan Bhagavan eliyudho." He says, "Oh, only this is written by Bhagavan?" At which point Muruganar realizes what he had done. He literally cries in tears and falls on his feet. And that day he resolved not to ever put that in any writing. And whenever somebody asked him, where did Bhagavan start? He would say, the whole thing was written by Bhagavan. However, it doesn't stop us from sort of predicting where Bhagavan started and where Muruganar ended. There are a few educated guesses that we could make in this section of poetry based on two facts. One, there is a distinct style between Muruganar and Bhagavan. Second, there is a pivotal point in this poetry where the content sort of changes. It takes a U-turn from where it is to where the rest of the poetry follows. So I'm going to point out, it's not definitive, it's just a speculation. T.R. Kanakamal also felt right around this place is where Bhagavan inserted that, and then sort of the rest of the poetry flowed from Bhagavan. So I'm going to show that in 1 second. So this is T.R. Kanakamal's reminiscence. So this is the section, I've taken a sort of a clip. I'm going to read just a few lines in Tamil, if it's okay. And I'm going to point out where quite possibly Bhagavan would have sort of started writing. Seppat Taramil Siriyen Sivaramanan, Meiparisu Vilvenam Mikon Viyanarulal, Vinnulai Mannulai Vedahamathulai, Pannulai Pattulai Parparhat Kengumulai, Vannamur Aindudayar, Valthu Varai Paravi, Yennuvar Tangul Iriyathul Poi Padindai. So there's a speculation, that's the line Bhagavan wrote. So what it says is, up until that, I'll just roughly translate. Vinnulai, he's in heaven. Mannulai, he's in earth. Vedahamathulai, he's in Vedas, he's in Agamas. Pannulai, he's in the words of the song. Pattulai, he's in the music. Parparhat Kengamulai, he's everywhere where you see him. Vannamur Aindudiyai, he has 5 colors. Or he also goes by Na, Ma, Chi, Vaya, 5 words. Valtu Varai Paravi. Won't you come and bless me? The next line is a classic Bhagavan. Ennuvar Tangal Idayathul Poi Padindai. Whoever thinks, he resides in their heart. It's a good enough clue, and
That's the first line.
it's frankly a decent guess that Muruganar was writing about everywhere. Bhagavan's just pointing out he's already inside. And then what you would see in the rest of the poetry that follows, roughly it goes up to like 640 lines or so, is an elaborate explanation of what we would likely see in Ullathu Naarpathu. So it's a very exquisite explanation about what Bhagavan has condensed in Ullathu Naarpathu. Is we should perhaps consider this sort of an explanatory verses of the Ullathu Naarpathu. So I'm going to play that song. Can you hear this? It's working? I'm sorry.
No, it's fine, it's fine. Put it
It's fine.
closer.
Put the mic closer. Other close to the speaker.
Close to the speaker.
This is a person by name Pon S. Sundaralingam.
Oh,
He's actually not a Tamilian, he's actually from Sri Lanka. I found this singing to be so good. It's a full-throated singing, but he actually pronounces Tamil exactly how it should be pronounced. So we have 30 minutes. So this is Bhagavan's handwriting of the final portion of Ramana Puranam, where he sort of finishes the end part of it by sort of surrendering as a devotee to Arunachala. So that's how sort of the Ramana Puranam ends. So another beautiful picture. What I liked about this picture is Muruganar sits exactly to the left of Bhagavan's feet. Right? The symbolism on this is so beautiful.
Right.
Right or left? Is it right?
Right.
Foot, yeah. On the left side. So this picture was taken in 1947.
This is also Muruganar.
Muruganar, yeah. Apparently he doesn't like being photographed at all. That's T.R. Kanakamar. Okay. So this is another interesting story in the sort of tradition of Bhagavan composing on behalf of somebody else. Sanadhi Murai is about to be published. There needs to be a prayer invocatory song that needs to be written. So Muruganar in the meantime sort of changes his name. So his original name is Ramanathapuram Subramaniam. He changes this to Muhavai Kanna Muruganar. So we did some research on why is it Muhavai Kanna Muruganar. Muhavai is the old name of Ramana district. So Muhavai Kanna Muruganar. Muhavapuri or Muhava Kanna. Murugan is Lord Subramanya is another name for Subramanyam, which is his native name. So one day, Vishnu Swami was sort of jokingly singing Muhavapuri Murugan, Muhavapuri Murugan, Muhavapuri Murugan. And Bhagavan asked, oh, that's so beautiful, you should write a poem about it. Apparently, by his account, Vishnu Swami attempts to write the poem, and the only 2 words he wrote in the poetry was Mohavapuri Murugan. And he gave that back to Bhagavan, and Bhagavan completed the rest of the verse, so which actually forms the introductory verse. And in this, the credit for writing the poem goes to Bharathiar Sri Vishwanath Sharma, which is Vishwanath Swami. I'll just read this poetry. Ahattamarai Malar Needurai Arunachala Ramanan Nahaitanura Veettanara Seguttanana Uyirai Mihattanarul Surandanana Mohavapuri Murugan Segattaruya Vahuttan Murai Tiruvasaka Nigare. So the summary is like, in price of Arunachala Ramana, who resides in the lotus heart of everyone, Mohavapuri Muruganar has composed his poems, which is very similar or parallel to Tiruvachakam. Tiruvachakam Nigare, he says it's equivalent or equal in status, not only in sort of the poetic style, but he's actually asserting this is equivalent to Manikavachakar's poetry.
This is written by Bhagavan.
Bhagavan. Except for the two words, Mohavapuri Murugan. That's Vishwanath Swami. So then comes the main sort of the Ulladhu Narpadu, which we should be infinitely thankful for Muruganar. Because Bhagavan wrote a lot of stray verses over a period of time. So Muruganar starts collecting those stray verses. Because in Tamil there are a lot of verses, Inna Narpadu, Iniya Narpadu, so that all is like 40 verses, and they'll all be in Venba meter. They're like in ancient, there are several such verses. So he attempts to make 40 verses of Bhagavan. So first he does a classic trick, which is take all the songs that Bhagavan wrote, and then one by one starts deleting them and asks Bhagavan to compose new songs. By the time he's done with it, Bhagavan pretty much recomposed the entire 40 songs. And all those original songs that were meant to be in the original 40 now belongs to Anubandham, which is the appendix, the second 40 songs. So Bhagavan composed originally 40 songs, and he had only one invocatory verse with 2 lines. And when Kavyagantha Ganapati came to know about it, he had an objection. How does Bhagavan compose only an invocatory verse 2 lines? It should be 4 lines. So now we got the first verse, thanks to Kavyagantha, to be 4 lines. So at which point Kavyagantha becomes again not very happy, because he doesn't prize a traditional lord, which is what you're supposed to be doing. And they take the 39th verse in the original section, make it to be the second introductory verse. Now we have the deficiency in the 39th verse, and Bhagavan composed 39th verse again, a new verse. So that's how we got the 2 invocatory verses and 40 verses, makes up 42. I love this picture. You know why? It's not only Bhagavan having this look, but he's holding this book, and I'm not sure you could see the words. It says Ulladhu Narpadu. It's quite possible that either he was proof correcting it, or he might be writing it virtually. So this is Bhagavan's virtual handwriting of Ulladhu Narpadu. And these are the verses with dates against them. So you would see most of these verses are composed in August or July of 1928. And what you would also find is there's only one verse of the original 40 that Muruganar kept, which is verse number 16, which was composed in 1927, July or August. Pretty much everything else was composed by Bhagavan. This presentation will be available to you. If you get a chance, you should read the poetry as well as the meaning of each of the verses. What you would find is, within the same day, there are 3 or 4 verses that Bhagavan would compose on the same day. Bhagavan would use the same exact starting word for most of them. So I would pick 2 examples. So you see this is 26:7:28, 26:7:28, 26:7:28. All of them starts with Ariyamai, Arivurum, Arivari. So you would see a similarity and pattern how Bhagavan composed these songs. And obviously these are not composed in a sequential order. What Muruganar did was, once Bhagavan composed, he rearranged them according to a plan, where it goes section by section on what is the problem, what is the solution, and how to solve that problem. The other unique thing about Ullathu Narpadu is as we saw in, this is based on Virutham style, every line should have only 4 words. Bhagavan would use somewhere between 8 to 10 words in a single line, but he would combine them to make a single word. And there are a lot of small words that Bhagavan makes to make one sort of word, but it'll actually split into multiple small words. And this is very unique sort of way of composing that not many people have had used in the past.
So, this is Venba, right?
Yeah, this is Venba.
So what about the syllables then?
So what Bhagavan did was he would use many small words to make a single word that strictly adheres to syllable, but he'd use these micro words to make the meaning. So I'll give you one simple example. Sada udal nan ennadu sachit tudiyadu. So if you split this, it follows exactly the meter and syllables, but he'll say sadam, udal, en, adu, sat, chit, udi, adu. He'll use 8 words. Every word will have 1 syllable in it. And the whole, that's why this is a bit of a tongue twister to say, because this has a lot of small words assembled together. It adheres to the meter so well, but it also brings out this wonderful meaning in beautiful Tamil. Okay, so this is taken from T.K. Sundaresh Iyer's At the Feet of Bhagavan, where pretty much all the devotees who had been with Bhagavan since that time would consider Ullathu Narpadu to be a Ramana Upanishad. It is such a sacred treatise for them that, Lakshmana Sarma translated it, Kavyakanta himself translated it, Kapali Sastri translated it. There are a number of attempts to translate multiple languages, and Bhagavan himself translated Telugu and Sanskrit. He helped Lakshmana Sarma to translate in Sanskrit, but he himself translated in Telugu also. That's T.K. Sundaresh Iyer. So, Venba, in the way that the previous Venbas are composed, the 42 distinct verses, it's very difficult to sing them in sort of Parayanam. So in 1929, Bhagavan takes those 42 verses and makes one single verse. That becomes Ullathu Narpadu Kali Venba. Essentially what he does is, at the end of every third, fourth line, remember Venba will end in the last line will have only 3 words. He'll add the 4th word so that it flows continuously to the next poetry. So you'd see, I put this in bold. The first 3 lines are exactly the same. The 4th line, he will just put that and then put that word, and then it flows into the next word. And then he did it in such a way the meaning was preserved, and it's one single long poetry at this point in time with roughly about 168 lines. It became Kali Venba. And this is the version that gets sung in the Parayanam, the weekly Parayanam. Any thoughts on this? Okay. It's another poet. Beautiful picture by Bhagavan. Okay. So this just beats my mind. So what Bhagavan, this is so unique. This is not done by anybody. There's no record of having done this in the past in the entire Tamil literature. So in order to make memorization easy, Bhagavan would literally pick the first word or syllable of a set of poems and compose a new poem. And he calls it headline poem. So he had composed many such headline poems. In and of itself, it's a poem. It's made of words from the original verses. And in and of itself, it will give out a beautiful meaning. So first search was the Ullathu Narpadu headline song. Literally he wrote this. You would see a small sort of comma across each letter or a word, And this itself became a poem. And it has a beautiful meaning associated with this. And
Do you have the English translation of that?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay. I
That's
think it's
good.
worth reading just that.
yeah.
Just one data point. Hari said that only Bhagavan has written it, nobody else has written this. Actually, Hari's written one. And so, I want you to know that he wrote one using Aksharamanamala, and we've read that.
Indiscretion. So the meaning, this is published in the latest Maharshi newsletter as well. I'll quickly read this. Inside the body, following from the first I thought, there is a strong group of crowded thoughts causing misery. These are, the world is real, self is this body. Know that this body is made of 5 elements. Know that without announcing itself with a name, there is a non-dual knowledge. Jnana is realizing that non-dual knowledge. The present body with I am knowledge has come about in the world only to realize the self. Keep the focus on I. Ego rises up because of identifying this body as I am. Before the I thought rises, there is a substratum of I am I. Seeking who am I, i.e. self-inquiry, will destroy the ego and will reveal itself as Chit, consciousness. So long as we think we are the body, sadhana is necessary. We are bhaktas only so long as there is a form. And how this comes about is just sheer magic.
I mean, it's incredible that the first word of all the verses in Ulladu Naapadu, randomly first word of first syllable, makes a poem that has this meaning.
It's, yeah. I just don't know how, and there are several such he has done. It's not the only one. And apparently it's for easy memorization, but I'm sure Bhagavan saw the pattern much before anybody else just using those words. But what's more interesting is this adheres to the exact same poetic rules that we spoke about in the morning.
See, and every word stands by itself.
Exactly.
Right? You don't need to have a sentence. Every
The
word,
word stands by itself.
Can you read the Tamil?
Sure. மெய்த்தன உள்மரணான் முலம் உலகுமை உருவம் தான் உடல் உலகு ஐமுலகு அறி எப்பயர் இரட்டை அறியா அறிவுறும் அறிவறி ஞானமாம் தன்மை நிகழ்வி தாம் நாம் என்று உடலால் உலகு உன் விதிகான் தன்னை தான் மதி நான் என்று இச்சடம் உருப்பற்ற அகந்தை நான் உதியாது எழும்பும் நான் என்று நான் யார் தன்னை அழித்தது என்னை என்று சித்தம் நாம் உடல் சாதக வினை முதல் பக்தன் உருவம். So 15 minutes more. I think we could do it. So Guruvachaka Kovai, as we spoke this morning, is the most authentic explanations that Bhagavan gave since 1928. So Muruganar used to compose a Venba whenever Bhagavan had given a set of instructions to a devotee by Q&A. So this should be considered as a precedent to talks or day by day. And the beautiful part about this is whenever Muruganar composed a poem on Bhagavan's teachings, he would show to Bhagavan. Bhagavan would take it and correct it. And where appropriate, he would add new poems in those verses. This didn't come to light until 1970s. People knew this existed, but nobody had collected these poems into one single book. Until Professor Swaminathan started doing it, and again we are very greatly indebted to him. When he was the managing editor of Mountain Path, he started sort of documenting this in Mountain Path. Usually, if you look at the Mountain Path editions from 1976 to 81, you would see Professor Swaminathan has sort of translated many of these poems, but he was handicapped in that these poems were not collected in one single verse, and it took a lot of work to collect them. So that's Swaminathan. And this is a sample version of the 1977 January Mountain Path, where he had translated some of these poems in English. So subsequently, Sadhuvam Swami methodically collected all of those poems. There are 1259 poems. And nearly many times when Bruna was alive, Sadhuvam Swami would go and ask him. Bruna would just dismiss them. He nearly lost about 400 such poems. And thankfully they found them in a old trunk box and they got it, and then he started recovering it. So thanks to Sadhuvam Swami and Michael James, the current version that's published has both the Tamil as well as the English translation with explanations attached to it. And in that, there are 29 poems that Bhagavan wrote. Many of them would find themselves in the Ulladanarpada Anubandham, or one such poem find itself in the Ulladanarpada itself. So we're going to quickly run through all of those poems just to sort of give you a sort of a view. But this is amazing. So this is a small introductory section written on Guru Vachaka Kovai when Bhagavan was around. And you would see Bhagavan would make a slight addition there. So what it says, without that edit, this would say, in short summary, Ramana's Siddhanta and its explanation is well captured in this book. By introducing that one letter, Bhagavan has said, only this book captures it. So that is a certification that Bhagavan has given, that if there is ever a dispute about Bhagavan's teachings in detail, this is the source to go to. And this book is organized by sections, where almost one should think of this as an explanation of Ulladanarpada into 1,200 such poems. So there are 29 such poems that Bhagavan has composed. I'm going to quickly run through them in sort of keeping up with time. We have 12 minutes to run. So this poem number 2 is verse 15 of Ulladanarpada Anubandham. Since most of these poems are captured here, I didn't add Ulladanarpada Anubandham as a separate section in here because most of these poems are part of Guru Vachaka Kovai. So this is verse number 17 of Ulladanarpada Anubandham. So this 4 and 5 are the poems that Bhagavan wrote for Deepavali. So he wrote, what is the meaning of Deepavali? Which is, in summary, realizing self directly. That's sort of the elaborate or the inner meaning behind Deepavali. So, and some of these poems are in 2 verse, which is Kural 1 by Rambar, and most of them are 4 verses, 4 lines, and this is a 2-line verse. I'll skip through. So this eventually found itself in Ekatma Panchagam as well. So this is verse number 14 of Ulladanarpada Anubandham. This is verse number 39 of Ulladanarpada Anubandham. So this is a beautiful poem. You know, there is a small story in Kunjaswami's reminiscence, as well as in letters, that Bhagavan goes in search of Arunagadi yogi because there is a big banyan tree and he sees a leaf. And while pursuing that path towards the mountain, he gets stung by a huge set of bees. And Gurunar asks him a poetic question about how it felt to be stung by bees. And Bhagavan actually wrote a response in poem back, and that's the poem captured here. And many such poems are lost because nobody kept track of them. Murunar would often write a question to Bhagavan in poetic form, and Bhagavan would respond back to him in poem back. And we only have a small such collection left behind. Some of it might still be in the archives, nobody would know. But many, like this used to be sort of a frequent occurrence between Muruganar and Bhagavan. This is verse number 13 of Ulladanarpada Anubandham, 30 seconds. Keep going. This is verse number 28 of Ulladanarpada Anubandham, 31st This is verse 30, 33. So this first two lines forms the 33rd verse of Ulladhu Narpadu Anubandham, and then Bhagavan added two more lines to make it a 4-line poem in the Anubandham. 24. So this found itself in Ulladhu Narpadu itself, not in the Anubandham. Verse number 25, 26, 27. And this is a beautiful one. So K.V. Ramachandran had composed a poem to Bhagavan in 2 lines, asking a question. And Bhagavan responds back to that question by taking the first 2 lines of K.V. Ramachandran, adding 2 more lines and making a Venba in form of a question and answer. And that's the 29th poem in the Guru Vachaka Kovi. Okay, we have 9 minutes to go. So this sort of concludes the main sort of Tamil works that Bhagavan had done. But Bhagavan also has done numerous other poems as one-off, almost in a playful manner. So we're going to quickly run through some of them. So the first poem is Ekam Aksharam. So this sort of page is in the front porch of the Arunachala Ashrama. Bhagavan wrote this in Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam and Sanskrit. Dennis couldn't tell us exactly how he got it, but apparently he got a version of it and he has framed it. And if you're nuanced enough, you would actually see Dennis' shadow here hanging around. It's
You probably got that from the patient.
So in this, so Bhagavan has written 2 versions of this. This is the 2-line version of Ekam Aksharam, and there's a 4-line version of it which is captured in the Day by Day. And this was originally written in September 30th of 1937 in Somasundara Swami's notebook. When Somasundara Swami gave a notebook to Bhagavan saying, write something in it, Bhagavan writes this 4-line poem, and pretty much is asking, the last 2 lines are very important. An Akshara, but who can write? The Akshara forever shining in the heart. So the Akshara that's shining in the heart is there. Why do we need this book to write? And then he translated this in Telugu in Yogi Ramaya's book as well, and that's a 4-line poem, not a 2-line poem. And he translated a Venba meter in Telugu. That's Yogi Ramaya.
Point here. So if you go back to the previous one, so this looks similar to a Sanskrit verse that Bhagavan wrote for someone with a similar question.
Here, right here. So this is the Sanskrit, where is it? Here.
Okay.
I think his question is whether he wrote Sanskrit first or Tamil first. Is that it?
Yeah.
Ekam Aksharam Hridi Nirantaram
That's the
Vasate
one.
Ismaya
Yeah.
Nikyate Katham. Yeah,
That's
that's
it.
the one. Same
That's
one.
Okay.
But he first wrote it in Tamil and then he translated in all the 4 languages. Whenever a devotee would ask Bhagavan to write something, this is what Bhagavan would write in the respective language to the devotees. So this is a funny poem that Bhagavan composed. So Avayar is a great Tamil saint and a poet. So Bhagavan, makes a fun about your stomach talking to your mind. The stomach complains to mind, you don't give me any relief. You constantly keep eating because to satisfy your desire, and I have to work hard to keep up with you. And that, your stomach complains to mind, yeah.
Aware mind complains.
Yeah, Avaya talked about mind complaining to stomach. Bhagavan wrote a stomach complaining back to mind. And then the stomach tells mind, just relax for a while. Let me settle down. And this was written right after a grand feast that Bhagavan had.
That's what I'm thinking.
So this is another beautiful sort of episode. That's why I sort of rushed into sort of just landing on this particular verse. So this is taken from T.K. Sundaresh Iyer's At the Feet of Bhagavan book. So I'm going to quickly read this for what it's worth. Sri Mahadeva Iyer, a devotee of Sri Bhagavan, was ailing in Madras from persistent hiccups for nearly a month. His daughter wrote to Sri Bhagavan, appealing to him to bless her father and give relief to his distressing ailment. On receipt of this letter, Sri Maharshi told me to write to Sri Mahadeva Iyer that a paste of jaggery and dried powdered ginger, if taken, would effect immediate cure of his trouble. Then, turning to Madhavan, his personal attendant, Sri Bhagavan said, "We had some ready-made paste of this medicine. Can you find it?" Madhavan immediately produced it. Bhagavan took a dose of it himself and distributed the same paste among those around him. He looked at me and said, "I might write to Sri Mahadeva Iyer by the very evening's post." I said in jest, "Why, Bhagavan? Mahadevan is already cured. Bhagavan has taken medicine for him." And Bhagavan gave a broad laugh. I wrote to Sri Mahadeva Iyer from the ashram office, but the next day's post brought us a letter from his daughter to say that her father was relieved of his ailment at 1 p.m. on the previous day. It was exactly the hour when Sri Maharshi took the jaggery paste. Isn't this like the saying in Tamil, "The gypsy was delivered of the child, though it was her husband who took medicine on her behalf." So Bhagavan would take these recipes and compose a poem so that it's remembered forever. So this sort of jaggery paste with ginger, he composed a poem. And this is taken from TK. This particular verse is taken from Kunjuswami's book, where he sort of in jest sort of gives the recipe for sort of curing your ailment if you ever had one. Okay, so this is the other such two-line poem Bhagavan wrote to cure rheumatism. So essentially it says, take tulasi rasam, tulasi juice, mix pepper and some ghee and take it daily, the disease will run away. So this is also taken from Kunjuswami's notebook.
Can you read?
துளசி ரசத்தில் மிளகுத்தூள் நெய் கலந்து உட்கொள்வதால் வாத நோயை கொல்லும். வாத நோய் is rheumatism. So the next headline song. This is a fairly intricate story. There is a gentleman, Thiruvenkatanather, whose daughter was widowed very early in her life. In order to console her, Thiruvenkata wrote 104 verses called Gita Charam, which is Tamil poetry written by him as sort of a song and dance of Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavan took those 104 poems and yet again composed a headline poem. This has not been translated yet. Hopefully we would translate them fairly shortly. But what you would find in them is, it's not only sort of adhering to the Tamil poetry, but it's written in 8 verse, or 8 word per line, called N-Seed Kalivenba. So that's the meter in which Bhagavan has composed this. And then another beautiful verse, and this is one of Dennis's favorite reading as well. In 15th century, there were 2 great saints, Tathuraya and Swarupananda. So Swarupananda wrote Swarupa Saram. It's one of the 6 books that Bhagavan has recommended to Annamalai Swamigal. So along with Rupagita, quite a lot of other books, Ella Montre, Swarupa Saram gets that sort of privileged place in Bhagavan's literature to read. Swarupananda's disciple is Tathuraya. There is a very long explanation day by day. In short, Tathuraya writes a lot of poetry in praise of his guru, Swarupananda, in the style of Bharani. So Bharani style is written only for those warriors who kill at least 1,000 soldiers. It's not written for saints. And when the learned pandits of the local village object to Tathuraya, how could he possibly write this Bharani for a guru, and a guru that has never fought a war? And Tathuraya simply asked these pandits to come and visit Swarupananda, and they come and visit him, they all get direct experience of self. How I wish I was one of them. And after 3 days of being this self bliss, they realize he deserves that Bharani. Therefore, they acknowledge Bhagavan and leave. So Bhagavan was very fond of this story. Taturaya composes a beautiful short verse called Sasivanna Bodham, which it's one of the earliest Advaita works in Tamil. Sasivanna is a person who's dejected, and this is so the way that this poetry comes about is Maheshwara tells this story of Sasivanna to Vishnu. That is the context. And Sasivanna is a dejected individual who lost his way in the world, and he gets spiritual teachings. And those poems are the spiritual teachings written by Taturaya. So in that context, Bhagavan composes yet another headline poem of the 104 verses. Again, this has not been translated yet. What's so beautiful about this is these are not popular works in Tamil. Okay? Sasivanna Bodham is not well heard of, and if you search for it, David Godman and Robert Butler and Venkata Subramaniam have attempted some translation of Sasivanna Bodham, and there's a set of articles that David Godman had written about Taturaya and Swarupananda online. But Bhagavan has taken these esoteric verses and sort of made a point by composing a headline poem implying that we should study about it. So yet another sort of paste medicine poetry. This is called Manipatra Legium. This helps someone deal with the digestive problems. Bhagavan found this recipe. Bhagavan found this recipe, and then he composed this poem so that people would sort of use this medicine for cure if they ever had the ailment. Again, taken from Kunjaswami's Tamil reminiscence. And if ever there's a quiz on this, if somebody asks you what's the last known poem that Bhagavan composed, lo and behold, it is for Lakshmi the cow. And this poem was composed, Bhagavan has given the date, 18/6/1948. There's no other written record of Bhagavan composing any other poem after this. And this is in the sort of the cow Lakshmi's idol in the ashrama. What's beautiful about Ramana ashram is there are only 3 declared jnanis by Bhagavan in the Ramana ashram compound: Bhagavan, Mother, and cow. There might be other, but Bhagavan confirmed these 3. And it is so fitting, Bhagavan should sort of finish that Tamil work at the end of Lakshmi's attaining mukti. And the very last line here, he explicitly says, this is the date on which cow Lakshmi attained mukti. Kunjaswami actually asks Bhagavan, does it mean that she really attained mukti? And Bhagavan said yes. That's a very clear confirmation. And that's a beautiful picture of Lakshmi touching Bhagavan's feet. We will end this with this poem. Ramana Ramana, Yeneka Mahilvai, Ramana Ramana, Uirai Ramithu, Ramana Ramana, Unadai Volirndu, Ramana Deepa Mangalam Ondru.
That's written by you?
A devotee. Done.
What did it mean, the last poem, in English?
It's praying to Bhagavan Ramana that be happy.
Mike.
It's praying to Ramana, God. In Tamil, if you repeated something twice, it's as if you repeat it for infinite times. So that's why the verse would have Ramana Ramana, Enaika Mahilvai. You be happy by protecting me. Ramana Ramana, again infinite times. Uirai Ramithu. You enjoy being my life. Ramana Ramana, Unadai Ulindu. You shine as yourself. Ramana Diva Mangala Mondran. That Ramana shines as the beautiful light as one.